Good evening. It's 2100 UTC on this Sunday, the 22nd of September, 3305. I'm your host, Jeff Ryan, and welcome to the Prismatic Congress. The Prismatic Congress is a broadcast by the Prismatic Imperium based in Cubio, an active player group that makes up part of the Ashling Deval community and specializing in role-playing. And it's been an interesting week here in Cubio and in the game. First, some general news. We had the update on the 18th of September, which came with a new player tutorial, which was highly praised. Even Yamix praised it in his celebratory video. It also brought us arcs, of which there have been also some complaints to do with this new system, which gives us access to free paint jobs and is a new currency that can be used to buy cosmetic items. This, however, broke the store shortly after launch. Numerous bugs which seem to have affected all areas of gameplay. I personally couldn't log in the first night. There are engineering bugs, and people are already worried about manipulation of arcs, as there's been some arcs rushes already confirmed in the game. It's also the 35th anniversary of Elite. So it's now 1984 is when the game originally launched on the BBC to mass acclaim. It was a system seller, which meant that people bought the BBC simply to play this game. To celebrate, everybody was allowed to buy a bobblehead of a Thargoid for 1 arcs. And Elite 1984 was advertised on the store for free. Elite 1984 has already been available for free in the past, but it has been made so publicly again. And now over to branch news with Lord Warden Missler from Vigor.
Thank you. Okay, so from the branch of Vigor, I should this time at least start by mentioning Roleplay, because there's a lot of stuff going on there right now. I was teasing roleplay opportunities last week already, but back then I did not expect what would actually happen over the course of the week. And if you haven't, I suggest you read up on the roleplay channels Prismatic Senate as well as Ruby Citadel. It happens that the Vice Warden is currently under arrest for pretty radical behavior. And this leads to a lot of follow-up potential for the roleplay, so stay tuned on that. And I hope you enjoyed what already happened so far. I'm pretty excited about that. But aside from roleplay, also a little look at our BGS state right now. The Prismatic Imperium continues to be in maintenance mode and mostly stable. The Adamantine Union is currently having an expansion that is imminent. We expect it to expand to the Arapani system, but we are waiting confirmation on that. But yeah, that's immediate, imminent. And for the PI, we currently also have had a great opportunity to retreat out of the HIP 7298 system, which was an unwanted expansion. And yeah, we are in the retreat there, and we hope that works out all right, so we are rid of that system again. Other than that, there's not much to mention, other than something I sad to say that I forgot to include this last week already, and which is that Commander Barefeet has been honored and promoted to the rank of Knight, because he's a great help with all the planning and managing all our BGS and setting goals there. So yeah. Other than that, there is nothing I want to talk about right now. There is one thing we could probably hit on in the discussion part later, but nothing for the branch of Vigor in particular. And then I would like to hand over to our Lord Headmaster Techeron, hailing from the Emerald Observatory.
Well, Emerald Observatory has always been a place of quietness at night, of course, when nobody else than me is sitting in this huge building also in the biggest office you've ever seen, looking into a holo screen and seeing your faces in front of me. But what I also see are the results of last week's exploration event I've announced. An overwhelmingly amount of people want to go to the Vale Nebula group, the third option that was available. So we are going to just do that. The Vice Headmaster and me are going to sit together and write down. Oh, well, look at this. I've never seen so many reactions on one post. However, my Vice Headmaster and me are going to have a little conversation about possible points on the routes that we're going to visit, because the Vale Nebula group actually includes over 8 different nebulas. So people voted for the longest expedition. I guess it's going to take at least 1 week. But look at the rewards. It's going to be worth it. Other than that, I have no announcements for this week. And since the Lord Herald isn't here again, probably doing something with the Vector at the moment, writing some new shady articles about me or the observatory, I guess it's time for the general news, isn't it?
We already did the general news earlier.
I mean the general discussion.
Yeah, now we're just going to have do some analysis. Discussed. Retreat. I was interested to hear that. I used to work pretty closely with planning and organization for the BGS, or at least discuss it a lot with the Lord's Warden. And one thing I do know is that retreat was traditionally a very difficult thing to pull off under the old system. I do know the BGS has been updated and changed, and it's now a multi-state no pun intended, because now you can have different states and different systems. So I'm curious as to how that will work now. I know that in the past we wanted to retreat from some systems simply because they made us vulnerable, because it was if you could apply a state to the faction, it applied over the entire faction, which made it very easy to you could attack us through one of our smaller systems, because that was easier to influence, and that could knock the entire faction into an unwanted state. So I'm curious as to how retreat is happening under the new system and how feasible it is. I know that it was traditionally a very hard thing to do.
Generally, it's still a lot of work to pull off, but when I said we had a golden opportunity, I really mean it was a golden opportunity. First of all, it was a system we were not really high in terms of influence. And secondly, there were 4 of 6 factions locked in a war, so their influence was tied up, and we basically had us versus somebody else. We managed to pull that into a retreat pretty quickly.
Good job. So it was just kind of like a lucky situation that cropped up organically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Promotions was the other thing you discussed. I was happy to see Barefeet promoted. I mean, as everybody in the High Council knows, Barefeet is somebody who's impressed us and somebody who was considered for a high-level role until we learned that he's retired from actually running his own BGS with another group and isn't really do that. So I'm still pleased that we have ways to recognize people in the Prismatic Imperium. I know that it's all virtual, but I think people do like to let it, as long as they know that people appreciate them and the work that they do. And I like that there are different ways to do that with us. So congratulations. I look forward to more promotions with people, working with us to accomplish our goals in different branches. It's always a nice thing to see people recognized for the work they do, and to see that people are working with us is always a good thing. The other thing was Lord Headmaster. So people voted for the longest expedition,
Yep.
Good. That's I know that the Lord Warden is signed up for that as well. For the
Oh,
expedition.
really?
I think
Yep.
so. Yeah. I'm correct. Good to know. I'm correct.
Gonna
Yeah.
see a little bit of space. And
So you want to take a break of all that BGS and space politics?
No, he still has to do that at the same time.
I'm sure can do without me being
Are you
present there
sure?
for a week.
Are
Which
you
is why
sure
I
it's
asked about the duration of the whole thing.
Are you sure it's a good idea to leave while your vice headmaster is
I'm
under
sure-
arrest?
I was about to say, I'm sure my vice one can handle it.
He can't handle
yeah.
anything. He's in
Oh
prison.
yeah. We'll get to that in a minute. So we're going. I'm not going because I'm still on the other side of the galaxy. So the expedition is going to Nebula's. Nebula's is something that I was discussing a little bit with Einark for his promotion. Einark is a player who's wanted to become promoted in the branch of sight, and Teki wanted to send him to fight Thargoids, but I convinced the Lord Headmaster that maybe that was a little bit excessive just to as a trial to join the branch for a new
Don't
player.
make me rethink that decision.
I spoke with Einar. He said that he didn't want to kill Thargoids anyway, so he's happier with the new mission. But one of the reasons I sent him to Nebula is because that's where a lot of stellar phenomena and life on planets actually occur. There is a direct correlation, so it is possible to run into some interesting phenomena out in the nebula. Some of the stellar phenomena specifically are only to be found in nebula. So that's a nice thing. So I'm happy that when does the expedition leave?
October. End of
Okay.
October.
End of October. Okay.
The
And
25th.
I would encourage anybody to join an expedition, especially if you're leaving as part of a group and with people who are experienced explorers, because they can tell you what to look out for. And also, one of the things I really enjoyed about Distant Worlds 2 was it was a little bit like a guided tour into deep space, as people had already done some of the scouting and had found some interesting things for people to look at and land on or discuss. So that's something that should be considered and will be considered before the expedition takes off, is showing people that space is a lot more interesting than just jump, jump, scoop, jump, jump, scoop, jump. There are nice things to be found out there, and appreciating what you find is always a good thing.
Don't you want to talk about your nice certificate you've got?
Yeah, no, I got a certificate, and also I got a decal for Distant Worlds 2, which
Nice. Congratulations.
thank you. Which I've now put onto the Savior's Haste, which is my ship, and I need to actually go to a proper printing place and not on my black and white printer, because I want to print it off properly, which is my certificate of completion for this. There were 3 of us from the Prismatic Imperium that actually took part. I think 4 of us set off. One of us turned back at Sagittarius. Dark Diablo and myself, we completed it as Prismatic Imperium. The former Vice Warden, I think he completed it under an alternate character. So that was.
I think he was doing it on the Xbox, right? And Tyrion Atmos was the one who returned halfway.
Yeah. I think he did it on the Xbox, and he was playing as an alternate character as part of the Sagittarius Eye crew. But still, he was still a Prismatic Imperium player. Yeah, he was on there as an official photographer as part of the DW2 official crew. So, yeah, so DW2 is officially over. We have our certificates and our decals. And, be nice in the future to do something like that for the branch of sight, but we'll see.
It's
We'll see what happens.
It's over, but you still don't want to come back and help me with all that paper stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in no rush to get home.
You just don't want to do that paper stuff.
No, the problem is space is just so incredibly big, and After
Yeah.
after I got past the first 3,000-4,000 light years out from Beagle's Point, I slowed to an absolute crawl because until that point, I was every other system I came to was one that had been explored by other people, because that whole area around Beagle's Point is, like, exploration wise, it's probably worse than some areas of the bubble, because explorers go. I mean, these are seasoned, experienced explorers who have basically explored a sphere of space that's quite large around Beagle's Point, which is also there's not a lot there, so it's quite easy to cover thousands of light years, hundreds of light years at least, and then thousands of light years reasonably well explored by hundreds of explorers who've made the journey, especially the people that take part in Distant Worlds and Distant Worlds 2, because these are people who are there specifically to explore that region of space, and they know it quite well. So that region around, like, there's about 3,000 light years around Beagle's Point where it's very well explored, and then a little bit further out from that it's reasonably well explored. So now I've actually reached a point where I still occasionally run into systems that have already been discovered, but that's a much rarer thing. So now I actually spend time exploring, and I just can't just jump, scoop, jump. I have to stop and explore every system I'm in. And I was actually thinking to myself today, at this rate, I probably won't be back until some point next year. So I might look at being a little bit more selective in on the systems that I choose to.
Hey, no problem.
try
I'm
to-
going to send you a copy of all that hundreds of thousands of stacks of paper, and you just fill it out as a hologram.
I mean, you still have some time until the big patch happens, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's when I first set off, and when I first got to Beagle's Point, I seriously considered staying at Beagle's Point until the 2020 patch, and I stuck with that as an idea that I was seriously toying with until some point at the end of June, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to start making my way slowly back to the bubble. I'm in absolutely no rush. I may not be back before 2020, but I
Oh, you have to be back. We want to celebrate the purchase of the new branch of site-specific.
yeah,
Fleet
no,
carrier.
I'm tempted. I'm seriously tempted to be back in time for December. But
We can do a welcome committee with the fleet carrier. Everybody waiting for you.
I would be very I'd probably like sneak back secretly and then go back out and pretend this is my official arrival, just because I don't trust everybody. That's
As soon as we buy that one, I don't have the responsibility for a university, but also for a fleet carrier. All on my own. I need you back here.
it's okay. I still give moral support.
Yeah.
I do. I can. It's something that is actually being discussed in character. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, so on to Knight Barefeet. You're part of the audience. If you want to, you can join in now. The official analysis news part of the show is over. So if anybody wants to join in discussion, they're now more than free to do so. How does everybody feel about the new updates? Missler?
Actually, mostly somewhat entertained. I'm in a position where I'm not too affected by the rather big list of bugs and issues that were introduced with the patch. And I find it to a degree quite amusing. But if I were in a position where I would actually want to engineer ships or so, I would probably be pretty annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, it makes absolutely no difference. If they'd unengineered my ship whilst I'm out in deep space, that would have been annoying. But because it was a cosmetic thing originally, it didn't really affect me that much. But I was affected by the big one, which happened on the night after the patch, which was I think they brought the store down to because there was a problem with ARCs, because ARCs had already been hacked or
Yep.
something gone terribly wrong. So they took everything offline, and doing that, they disconnected people from their accounts. So if people were logged out, they could not get back in. In fact, it denied that I owned the game. It said you need to buy the game.
Right
So
in the
that-
launch already, right? Yeah.
yeah. So
You had that issue, didn't you?
yes. That was the most serious, and honestly, I thought it was funny because I could guess what had happened. It's not been confirmed, but I think it's a pretty good guess that by taking the store offline, they disconnected accounts. So if you had to log in again, if you were in the game, you were okay, but if you had to try and use the launcher, there was no way to get back in. So at first, it told me to install, but I thought I've already, you know. got the game, so I just wanted to update it. So I logged out and logged back in, and when I logged back into the launcher, it told me
Purchase.
purchase. So that I thought, okay, they'll be on it and they will fix it as soon as possible. I didn't even feel the need to make a bug report because I was pretty sure I understood. But if there was still a problem on Thursday, then I would have filed a complaint. But I was pretty sure it wasn't just me. Techie?
I like the new Arc shop. It has interesting stuff in it, and its design is almost the same as in the Rainbow Six Siege shop. Other than that, I haven't seen any issues yet, but I'd like to try that new tutorial.
Yeah, the new tutorial is basically, it was a shame that they had such a big problem with arcs, because the awesomeness and the universal acclaim of the new tutorial was kind of drowned out by the screaming about all the bugs, which I can understand. I mean, engineering is a big part of the game. Not being able to play the game is a big part of the game. So So it was. I can understand why people were a bit miffed, but for me, it's like patch day. I've been I've been doing this now since 2013, which is when we went into alpha. For me, it's like old hat. I expect things to break and sometimes those can be catastrophic things that make the game absolutely unplayable. But I'm used to it now. I expect things to break, and I respect Frontier enough to know that they're going to fix it. Usually reasonably quickly. I mean, it had me able to log back in again by the next day. Have you had a look at the new tutorial, Missler?
I've seen it on the stream and wherever they broadcasted it, but I haven't played it myself.
Okay. Techie?
Yeah, I want to try it next week.
Okay. So, it's a shame, actually. I thought Benjamin might join us because I actually would have liked to have
He's
had
in prison.
to have had him in this conversation, which is
Better not. Better not.
role playing in the Prismatic Imperium and Elite Dangerous. So
After what happened, the only thing he'd be allowed to say is, I'm sorry.
but it's an interesting dilemma. I was originally concerned when Benji's storyline first kind of kicked off. I was concerned because of the disconnect between in character and out of character, and I don't mean that in any critical way. What I mean is that and this is something I've discussed a little bit with the High Council and maybe in roleplay discussion, is for me the High Council is an out of character organization. It's an organization that originally was to help me to run the Prismatic Imperium as it expanded and to give me advice, and that was how it started, and it's evolved into. It's also a good way to involve the more active and more capable players in running the Prismatic Imperium, to give them a voice and to give them power to take action. So some there's no case where somebody has been promoted to the Prismatic Imperium simply because we needed them. We have always been impressed. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I mean, we've had High Council members who are very active and involved right up until the moment they become promoted, and it's been that way since day one. I mean, I've always said it's like you take people, you throw them at the job, and if they stick, fantastic, and if they don't stick, that's okay. They're also you have to take the risk. You have to give people responsibility, and some of them grow into it, and some of them don't. So that's not in any way connected to the Benji discussion. But what it is that the High Council is always people that are heavily involved in running the Prismatic Imperium or organizing activities. I mean, like Trinity first came to my notice when we were organizing the pamphlets to be taken to Colonia to begin the Aurora Union, the Prismatic Renata system and all that stuff. So yeah, what's it called? The Colonists of Aurora. So that's how they were founded, and Trinity was very good at helping to organize both the players of the Prismatic Imperium and involving other Ashling commanders to come and help us to do it. So she managed to get all the community involved, and she was promoted first to Vice Warden and then later to Lord Warden, based on the fact that she did a lot of work. So I think that Benji, out of character, is there's a few people that have impressed us recently, including Mistler, Benji, and Bearfeet. So I mean, these are people that have impressed us with the work they do, specifically with stuff to do with Vigor. I mean, they're good at Vigor stuff. So Benji's promotion is based on what he, the player, does, and there's always been this thing where the High Council is reflected in the roleplay, but it's like a top-down thing where because the High Council is there and it exists, then that means that they have a position in the roleplay. And I was, for the first time ever, I was concerned that I would hate to have to. I mean, fortunately, I don't run the PI anymore, so I've got no say in this whatsoever. But I was concerned that it's impossible for me that we have a bad guy, obviously bad and aggressive towards the Prismatic Imperium, who is part of the High Council, and there was a disconnect between the roleplay and the out of character stuff, and that was Kevin said that. Don't worry about it. But for the first time, I was absolutely concerned that I'd have, not I, but the Prismatic Imperium would have to say to a player, look, you're great out of character, but your guy is just acting completely crazy, and it makes no sense for this character to be in the High Council. Any thoughts on that? Sorry, that was my speech, but
I have to say I was a bit worried about it too, but there was some point where it kind of snapped, and I think now it's just a pretty interesting turn of events and leading to some really interesting situations in roleplay.
yeah, because
And I don't think that disconnect between in character and out of character is really anything that hurts.
yeah, it's. I mean, I've been role playing online since the mid '90s, and I've never encountered a situation like this. But that's because of the unique kind of setup of the Prismatic Imperium, which is this mix of out of character and role play. So, what was it that you were talking about when you said there's something else that you'd like to discuss, but would maybe be better in discussion? I thought it might have something to do with this discussion.
No, not necessarily, but I can hit on it anyway if you want.
Sure.
It's a little topic where I would like your input or make it an open discussion. And I dubbed it planned in-game activities versus time zones. And what this is about is pretty much only what is your thoughts on actually finding good times and coordinating events for people? Now, in our group, we have a lot of folks from mostly around the North American time zones. We have a lot from the European time zones, maybe some folks even in other time zones, but obviously this leads to some complications when planning things like events. I already said that we want to have events with the branch of Vigor. Site has one scheduled for end of October, as we mentioned earlier. And everything has a little bit of this issue. How do you set a time? How do you determine who's interested and come up with something? Do you just set a time and hope the interested people are there? Do you make a poll? What's your thoughts on that topic?
I'll tell you one thing.
Okay, take it.
I absolutely hate time zones. More than everything else.
I agree.
I basically spent a large part of my 20s living in the American time zone because, and by that I mean not actually living in America, but in Europe in an American time zone because it was so many of my hobbies and online role playing stuff revolved around group activities. I had no choice but to, if I wanted to take part, I had to be awake at 4 a.m. And eventually I got to the point where, okay, I can't do this anymore. And like about 12 years ago, I kind of started to pull out from those kinds of activities as I realized, okay, I need to actually focus on the real world more and not live in an American time zone just for my hobbies. And I had to reorganize myself back into living in. But yeah, I completely, I hate the issue. I've never found a good solution. Other than, I mean, now to solve it, I would probably need to get divorced and become homeless or become a millionaire.
How about making the
A
planet
divorced
flat?
millionaire. What's that?
Making the planet flat.
There would be some issues with that, Techie.
I
So-
know, a lot of physical issues.
Maybe you could borrow another sun and make a day everywhere.
Ooh, that's a good idea. That's probably a bit more feasible because, I mean, even if you flattened the Earth, gravitational forces would force it back into a sphere.
Just take the Earth and put it between a binary star.
Okay, that's probably more workable. As for a long-term solution, short-term, sure, you could flatten the Earth, but it would reform into a sphere because that's how gravity works. The laws of work. That's why it is a sphere in the first place. It's not like it's just a random shape. It's the most stable shape.
Have you heard that, kids? It's still a site-driven show.
Yeah, so time zones, yeah, it is a problem. I think that you have part of a solution yourself, which is your vice warden when he gets out of jail is American. So having two people who are from different time zones in charge of a group can help with organizing activities.
That's true, yeah.
So if it's a European activity, you take the lead. If it's an American time zone activity, or you can alternate. They're also like overlap times. In theory, this is a half decent overlap time, which is Americans are out of work or starting to come out of work, and it's late night here, but not too late. It's not 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe another hour ahead would be a little bit better. So like if this was at 12 o'clock, it's even better. Even then today, I mean, the lifestyle has changed so much that very few people actually work a 9-to-5 job anyway. So there's always outliers.
Which can make it easier, but also more difficult to plan.
Yeah, so no, I don't have a solution. The best thing to do is try and organize things and then hope people turn up. One thing is the best solution I found is for things like that is simply like the Distant Worlds thing, where okay, there were group activities, especially like the mass jumps and things, which I never took part in. I never took part in. But it's the activity is something that you do together. I mean, like when I was on Beagle's Point, there was enough people there that at every time zone I would usually find. Even then, even with thousands of people, it was still like, if I woke up too early or went to bed too late, it was still points where I'd be on my own in the afternoon or whatever. But yeah, you just go there, and at some point during the day, you'll run into other people. I mean, I've always run into like Otto or Trinity or whatever when we're doing.
You even did that.
What's that?
You even did that. You even ran into Otto.
Yeah. No, but when we did like the Medupi thing when we all went to get the unknown artifacts, not the unknown artifacts, what was it? The stuff to fix the damage. We all went out to the
Meta
barnacles.
alloys.
Meta
Yeah,
alloys.
meta alloys. When we had to fix the station, we all went together. And even though, I mean, there was no planned activity, there was no like, okay, guys, we're going to meet up at 10 o'clock on this planet. We all knew that we had to go to this planet and mine. So we were always meeting other PI members whilst we were there. So that was a nice thing. So there's no organization, but there's an event that can happen over days. So if it's happening over days, you're probably going to run to people. So that's a nice way to do things as well. Is okay, guys, we're going here. We're going to be here for this amount of time, or our activity is this, and you come and go, and that's you meet people from your group as you're doing that because everybody's doing the same activity. We might all be doing it at different times, but there will be overlaps. So, and I still remember Otto jumping around in front of my ship in his SRV like a kangaroo. That's one of my fondest memories of the game. Actually, is Otto being silly.
Well, another story to tell the Chancellor.
He knows. So back to one thing I do like to try and do with the open discussion topic is touch on something that we've touched on and make it specific to the Prismatic Imperium. So like last week we touched on the new player experience. Today we talked a little bit about role playing, but how could we how do we approach roleplay specifically in the Prismatic Imperium, and what do you think we do well, and is there anything you think that we could be doing better?
There's a clear point I can say to what we do well, and that is because I'm relatively new to the group still. Just joined end of last year, and when I went to the website and I saw, wow, there's a diamond market there. There's like character equipment and loadouts. There's inventory system. There is a virtual currency with diamonds. Now we even have commissions. You can invest in places. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and I think simply having this account on the website and all the services that tie into our roleplay, I think that's really cool thing, and I found that really motivating when I joined. So that's certainly on the list there.
I think that the people behind I'm not anything to do with that, but the people behind that I did ask for a motivation, like let's try and motivate our players to do the things that we want them to do. And I've had arguments with other people in different groups about this, but I felt that we needed to find some way to motivate people, and that was a conversation that I had, and the diamond rewards and things came out of that conversation. But then, obviously, when you give rewards, if I give you 5 Jeff points, you then need stuff to spend those Jeff points on, and that's kind of where everything grew up. And obviously, because we were already role playing, and Kevin does a great job
Absolutely.
in running events and masterminding them. I think he's even better than people give him credit for as well, because he doesn't come from a role playing background. He doesn't come from that. He's kind of approached it from how he thinks it should be done, and the way that he thinks it should be done seems to work and is very attractive to a lot of people. And he's very good at telling stories. That's a knack, which is the ability to tell stories over long periods of time. When he first approached me about running his stories inside the Prismatic Imperium, I mean, it wasn't even the Prismatic Imperium at the time. It was still just the Facebook group, and he wanted to do things. And even then, he had a plan that at that point would have been a couple of years. I mean, that plan has come and gone, and he was able to tell that story involving the players and having them change certain aspects of the story that he would tell. So I think that he deserves credit both for what he does and also the fact that he's done it from like an original standpoint. He hasn't come from D&D or World of Warcraft or or whatever Shadowrun role playing game, or it's an original idea, I think.
Absolutely. And I think I also like how we have non-player characters that try to get new people into the role play. I think our role play can still be a little bit intimidating because it's a lot of more high-ranking people or people who have more role play experience that already within the group are doing things in the role play channels, and we have these huge sessions. I remember the first session I participated in. I was pretty lost in there because it was so much going on and a lot of repressions there to keep up with. But I think overall, he's doing a good job, especially Kevin managing all the NPCs to get new people involved.
I think that's something that Discord lends itself to a lot better. When the first time something like this happened, it was to me, and it was in the Facebook group. And Anthony Burge, who is a real friend of Kevin's, he contacted me on Facebook, sending me a lot of stuff that was in character. But this kind of happened to me out of the blue on my real Facebook account from somebody that I didn't know. And I was just kind of completely confused. I mean, I am a role player. I mean, I've been role playing since the late 80s, early 90s. But this approach completely blindsided me. And I was like, Kevin, what the hell is going on? And we actually had to have a conversation. It's like, this is this and this. And I think that was probably the move to Discord, which was completely accidental. But the move to Discord has helped develop that side of things. And if you're approached on Discord, it's not the same as getting a message on Facebook from people that you don't know telling you things about stuff in a game. And I was just, what is going on? Any criticisms about how we run things? I think my own personal first and my main criticism, and it's something I did work. I tried really hard to push. Was individual players role playing, like not depending so much on Kevin.
Yeah.
Yep, true.
My point too.
Yeah, I do wish that players. I've tried I even wrote a whole set of rules about lore. We had different grades of lore, just to kind of encourage people to stay within certain limits. If they wanted their role play to be considered official, because obviously when you get people like coming in and saying, "Okay, I run a federal corvette," no, I run a federal cap ship. That's what it was.
Well, we have rules. That's not possible.
Yeah, but it's because we have a different kind of setup to like mushes and things from the 90s and early 2000s. Like in those kind of situations, you have a DM and you have rules. And okay, if you want to play in our game, these are the rules that you have to play by. Simple things like etiquette, don't power game, take in turns. So like if Techie writes a scene, then I can reply to that. And then Missler would reply to mine, and then back to Techie. It wouldn't be Techie, me, Techie. Missler has a chance to intervene. And then, there's simple etiquette that comes from role-playing online in this kind of environment, which the Discord is very similar to. It's very similar to the type of place I used to role-play back in the late 90s and early 2000s. That text-based format, storytelling. We even have a dice system and the wonderful equipment and stuff tied into our website. I think that we do offer a lot, and I do wish that there were some players that kind of understand what Kevin is doing and emulate it. Not necessarily on such a grand scale, but I do see some more casual role play or people role playing outside of the main story. But I would like to see more of it, and wish that people who want to do it don't feel intimidated and feel free to do that. Kind of, I was always fighting a little bit with Kevin about the number of rooms, because people have actually given Kevin into trouble recently because of the number of roleplay rooms, but that's not Kevin. Kevin doesn't like having so much roleplay because he wants to know everything that's going on, and having more rooms makes it more difficult for him to keep track of who's saying and doing what. I really wanted more rooms to encourage people to go off and do their own thing.
It's really an issue of too many channels for roleplay, or is it more an issue of too many channels on our Discord server because we have a lot of them?
No, I don't see the issue there.
Neither do I. I do think that we've got a decent number. We've got like a nice compromise. And also, most players are not aware of all the channels that we have. I mean, those of us that are in the High Council, we can see everything. But not everybody can, so it depends on your level of access. We used to have,
sometimes it's because of reasonable restrictions.
yeah, I mean, I think we still have it, or maybe not. But we used to have it that you could only see certain channels if you were in a specific branch, or I think we did away with that and we made all.
General members can see everything that's really necessary.
Yeah,
and it amounts to a lot of channels already.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think in terms of getting new players in, one important point is queues, like having a cause to roleplay and a motivation to get into these strangers initially. The sessions are a good thing, a good opportunity for that. But other than that, maybe there could be more like these queue situations, motivations to get people to really meet up with other players, motivate them that you can just talk to anyone. I'm not sure if it would help if there was some kind of etiquette, general guidelines for roleplay guide or so. If it would also help to put any recommendations in there how to engage as a new player, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Kind of we'd run people through the do's and don'ts. So yeah, maybe a roleplay etiquette guide for the website would be a good idea. That was not what I was suggesting, but you put it like that. It's like, oh, actually, that's a good idea. But yeah, some kind of roleplay etiquette that people. It's not that. It's kind of like what you just said. It's like that would encourage people because they know what the rules are. If you actually write out some simple things, then they know what not to do, and they might feel more encouraged to actually take part.
I remember when I got into the group that I think I DM'd Kevin with a fair bunch of questions and how things are run and if I understood it correctly or how would I do this. And I think there are a couple of points in there that new players are probably going to ask anyway that could be answered with such a thing.
I think an etiquette guide would probably be better written by somebody. I'm not a heavy partaker of the roleplay. I do try to do some light roleplay here and there, and
this would be the perfect topic for people from the branch of mind, but those are not here again.
Yeah, they're busy writing articles with the Vector.
Right.
You really don't like the Vector at all.
Nope.
Like really, not the character, not Tech. I mean, you don't like him. So
yeah, my character and myself hate him.
Yeah. That's a shame. It's fun. I like.
For you, yeah.
It's very fun.
You're not the center of his attention.
I have been. I'm still very protective of Corwin.
You know, being accused of turning people into various reptiles isn't fun at all.
Corwin's been accused of a few things over the years by the either Anthony Burge and or the Vector. Nothing. I mean, I've not been accused of the kind of stuff that you get accused of. But I mean, you're like the crazy scientist guy. Of course, they're going to accuse you of crazy science.
I'm
stuff.
not a crazy scientist guy.
You are.
No.
You're the leader of the branch of science. As far as the media is concerned, you're the crazy scientist guy. So they're going to accuse you of crazy science stuff. Although in actual fact, it's actually Ramirez who is the actual crazy scientist. But there we go. That's
I think
you.
the Vector is fun. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that there has been no bashing on the branch of Vigor yet. It's like a perfect opportunity.
I
Oh,
wouldn't
just
say
you
that
wait.
too loud. No, was it Benji already got an article written about him because of his thing with cattle?
That triggered the whole Baltic Hunt event.
Yeah, well done.
It's also pretty cool.
Yeah, I need to. I actually need to get involved a little bit with Benji's situation because not as Jeff, but the Duke I think should take an interest at this point. I was happy enough to send Otto after him because that the Duke is not there for general kind of shouting at people. That's Otto's job. Otto is. So actually, I did start to write up a reply to some of Benji's stuff in the Senate, but then I thought, okay, the Duke has rebuked recently, and that was a general warning. At this point, he's not going to get involved. He's going to send Otto to take care of it because that's what Otto does, and he's very good at it.
Otto and Dave.
Otto and Dave,
Yep.
they get stuff done.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sometimes.
so role playing. I think an etiquette guide is a good idea. I would like to see more role play done independently and just done for the fun of it and expanding upon your characters. I absolutely this doesn't come across in my conversations. I think on text, but I absolutely love Benji's story. I've always loved it. The problem is my concern because I was concerned about I'm less concerned now that certain things have happened, but I have enjoyed it, and I do like seeing good role play and good role players. And he's a very good role player. He's very good at it. So I enjoy the story. I look forward to see what's happening. Not everybody needs to be the good guy. We do need villains, and there are some good villainous characters in the Prismatic Imperium. So we've had a lot of news to discuss, but this has been an interesting episode. I am sorry that some more people didn't take part today. It would have been nice if maybe it's a question of time. So next week we will be doing it at a different day. I think we're looking to try and do it on Monday because next week I'm off in Rome to attend a wedding on Sunday. So I'll be back for Monday, and we'll see if we can do it. I hope that everybody that's here can take part, and maybe we can get some other people in. So that would be a nice thing. Okay, and I think that concludes today's episode. I'm Jeff Ryan, and this has been the Prismatic Congress.